Welcome to the Sunmall podcast, where we interview the stars of e-commerce. Today we have Paul Vogue of Bora, one of the leading sparkling water companies. So the first question I had is, you have a really interesting background. You were in business development. You're an associate. How did that background help you, and how did that lead to you getting into e-commerce?
Almost not at all. I would say I came in totally cold on the e-commerce front. I never sold anything really on the internet other than t-shirts at one point as a kid. But my previous job had a fully stocked fridge full of LaCroix. So I was drinking 8 to 10 cans a day at work. And it felt weird to me that we had kettle potato chips and Jenny's ice cream and Justin's peanut butter. And then we had LaCroix sparkling water. Felt like we had the premium, higher end, craft, artisanal, pick an adjective of your choice of so many commodity brands. And then in sparkling water, we're just drinking the bottom shelf stuff. And I quickly realized there's not really a good flavored sparkling water at the higher end that I felt could do the same thing. So that was the idea for the product. And then the e-commerce version of it came a little bit later, but that's probably the best thing my previous job gave me was one, a pretty good sense of what business meant, how to use QuickBooks, how to read a income statement and a balance sheet, and frankly, getting me addicted to sparkling water that I didn't really enjoy.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I definitely, when I was at like a company with perks, yeah, definitely the sparkling water. We used to drink a lot of it. It's like pretty easy.
Yeah, you mow
It's
through it
pretty easy to
for
get
sure.
addicted. That totally makes sense. And so you had this idea for this sparkling water. So how did you get started? How did you build the brand up? How did you get the first 1,000 customers, maybe?
Sure, first 1,000 customers. So we started in retail like so many consumer packaged good products. And then on a lark after COVID, someone said, "Hey, you should make it so that you can buy on your website." At that point, we had a very simple like Squarespace page that you couldn't actually buy anything. You could read about the product, see the nutrition facts, see where we were sold, but that was the extent of it. So that got us into selling. So maybe our first 1,000 customers were frankly probably 10 or 100 folks at the first 10 stores. But once we started selling online, I'd say there was a solid year where we didn't do any ad spend whatsoever. And I am the youngest of 5 siblings and the youngest of 12 cousins. And I felt like I had family members and then friends and family and then friends of friends and family. And then organically it grew until at one point I was driving to the post office once a week and then a couple times a week and then twice a day. So yeah, and of course we found a 3PL and outsourced a lot of the fulfillment. But I was probably the biggest cynic. I thought there's no way to make a business selling sparkling water on the internet. People have to buy it at store. I was wrong. People thought our flavors were unique enough that they were worth buying direct to
That's
consumer.
awesome. And now are you mainly retail, mainly online, or it's a mix of both?
We're about 2/3 retail, 1/3
Okay.
online.
And how do you guys think about in the marketing, what channels are the best for you? And how do you guys think about marketing both for your D2C site and also for retail?
For retail, it's a little easier to understand because just imagine you're in a typical grocery store. The average grocery store has more than 10,000 SKUs, stock keeping units, 10,000 individual flavors, size packs, pouches, bags, barrels, bottles, you name it. It's really hard to jump off the shelf. It's an inundated shelf. And the larger the retailer, the closer you go from a small curated bodega to a big rural supermarket, it gets harder and harder. So for marketing dollars in store, we try to market to things that immediately lead to a sale. I'll give an example. If we can get an end cap where you might get, rather than one can for $2, you get two for $3 and you try to two different flavors. That's a great way to market in store. That's marketing via trade spend. A lot of retailers have mailers or ads that you can submit in front of their customers. They have fridges by the counter that you can pay to get into on a week, 2 week, month-long basis. So most of our marketing today is in store to our distributor and to our retailers such that the discount gets passed on to the customer because we know people buy off of tags. They buy off of what is on sale in grocery stores. And if you can introduce someone to your product and get them to like it, maybe they'll come back the next time and buy it full price. In terms of marketing online, we have focused almost exclusively on bottom of funnel. In particular, our own owned list. Our email list every 4 weeks gets an email saying, "Hey, we have a new flavor dropping today. Give it a try." And our goal is to sell out that flavor the next 30 to 60 days, depending on the exact flavor. And it's an amazing way to, one, of course, do R&D, two, keep our list engaged, keep them excited about the next possible flavor. And three, of course, sell without ad spend. That's our list. We own those emails. So that's our current marketing
That
today.
totally makes sense. So for in-store, really trying to give your consumers the discounts, and then for out of store, really re-engaging vs customers. I think one thing you mentioned is that one thing you guys try to do is launch new flavors and tell you re-engage your customers. So how do you guys come up with new flavor? Like, what is that process like?
At first, it was just whatever occurred to us. So our first five flavors were lemongrass, coconut, peppermint, watermelon, lavender, cucumber, basil berry, and cactus rose. And as you can just deduce from that list, some of those are flavors you've probably had in a different thing. Maybe you've had a lavender candy before, or a cucumber flavored water, or peppermint is pretty obvious. Watermelon, same thing. But some of those are new. Like you probably don't know what to imagine when I say cactus rose sparkling water. Most people haven't had either of those ingredients. We knew when we started that we have five flavors. Some of them are fastballs, some of them are curveballs. Some of these will be winners, some of these will be losers, some will probably be right in the middle. And that was definitely the case. We then took a far more data driven approach of, okay, what do people actually want? And this is almost like a no duh. Like I must have been a real dummy not to think of this earlier, but almost every big sparkling water company has a lemon, a lime, and a grapefruit. People like citrus flavors. And in fact, just to show how dumb I was, I had our first sell sheet had in big, bold font, like no boring citrus flavors. And that was coming from me, a guy that was drinking a gallon of sparkling water a day and mostly drinking the citrus flavors. So I just wanted different citrus flavors. After a year and a half of selling in market, both online and in store, consumers and retailers seem to say, hey, we'd love some citrus flavors. So that was a loss. We took that as, okay, we made a mistake. And we came out with grapefruit elderflower, ginger Meyer lemon, and lime cardamom and started those as limited time flavors on the website. They sold out, sold it again on the website. They sold out, sold it again on the website. And then we took that data and got retailers to jump on board. So now you can find all three of those flavors in store: grapefruit elderflower, ginger Meyer lemon, lime cardamom. So that was one example of it. We came up with the flavor because that's a lot of what the competition was doing. And we wanted our own twist to it. So it's not just lime, it's lime with cardamom. It's just not just lemon, it's Meyer lemon mixed with ginger. Today, our limited time flavors, currently we're selling a guava eucalyptus flavor. Last month was hibiscus passion fruit. In a moment here, we'll have tangerine orange blossom. Some of it's a mix of what consumers tell us they want. Some of it's a mix of, frankly, what I think might be fun and I mix up in my kitchen. And some of it's what other brands in other categories have done really successfully. And there's no rhyme or reason, but certainly we try to listen to our group of consumers the most because at the end of the day, it's sparkling water. We know, hey, we're not making a huge necessity here. Like this isn't going to a hospital. There's no one on life or death here. We're just trying to have fun and make interesting sparkling water flavors. So we're interested in all input. Sparkling water novices or sparkling water aficionados, we'd love to give it a try.
That totally makes sense. So I think seeing what your competitors are doing, getting feedback from your customers, also your own intuition, and combining those things with your brand to make a novel flavors. You mentioned a lot about you're getting feedback from your customers. So how do you actually get that feedback? Do you get them to do surveys? Do you host meetups? What's the way you get feedback from customers?
All the above. So anytime we demo, we ask for feedback, both from new customers that have not tried the product, and from those that are just trying a free sample for the first time. Our email and text list is really fun. We email out, I'd say, probably some of the most ridiculous emails in CPG right now. We did one 2 days ago that was all about a strawberry shaped toilet and how you could fill your toilet water with our product. That's obviously a joke, but it does lead to a high interaction rate, both people opening the email and replying to it. And then sometimes we directly ask in an email, like, can you fill out this survey? Can you tell us your favorite flavor? Or a post-purchase survey will ask, what got you to click on this specific flavor? And if we find that more and more people are interested in tea-based ingredients, then we think, okay, maybe it's time to make an Earl Grey flavored sparkling water. If we find that people want more citrus, and we've already done lime, lemon, and grape, well, maybe it's time for tangerine or clementine. It's a mix of all the above, and then obvious ways of commenting on social media posts, DMs we get. Often I actually, maybe my favorite way is my cell phone number is to print on the back of every can. So I don't know, probably 3 or 4 times a day, I get a call from a consumer with some sort of opinion, generally positive, and sometimes with a new flavor idea.
That's awesome. I really like the cell phone number at the on the can. That's really clever. So one of the things here is you're mentioning like the flavors are some of them are limited time availability. I imagine that helps drive urgency here. So A, how do you think about the length of the duration for the limited time availability? And B, do you ever try to, if something's doing really well, make it a permanent one? How do you guys think about that? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. On the second one, if it's doing really well, we'll bring it back. And if it does really well again, because sometimes things do really well and it's consumers just responding to the way they think a flavor should or will taste. If it sells out again on the second time, then we know, okay, it's a lot of return purchasers and we have that data, of course. Meaning they don't just like the idea of the flavor or the name of the flavor or the look of the flavor. We have very distinctive packaging. They actually liked it enough to come back and buy it again a few months later. Those are typically the signs that we should make something permanent. So most recently, hibiscus passion fruit was a flavor we sold January of 2022 the first time, and then we brought it back in February of 2023, and it had a really, really high repeat purchase rate from the first time, and sold out very fast. And as a result, we felt like, all right, this should be a forever flavor. And sometimes forever flavors just live on our website. And frankly, that means we're trying to find a retailer to take a stab at it such that we can justify producing a lot more of it.
That totally makes sense. And then you were talking about a lot of customers here are repeat customers and stuff like that. And that's also how you decide if a flavor is worthwhile, if people are going to rebuy it. How do you guys think of, subscriptions, re-engaging customers? Because it's not like you just sell one flavor, there's new flavors coming out. So how do you guys think about re-engaging customers and then subscriptions on that front?
So what's funny is for a long time with subscription, we couldn't find a way to sell like a subscription of the month, which like sounds so ridiculous because it seems like it should be a really easy thing, but such was the case. Now, or probably by the time this podcast comes out, we'll have a way to sell a every 4 weeks. They just get whatever is the latest flavor, which is great. So as a result, our subscription, we're frankly a smaller business than you would imagine for an e-commerce business of our size because consumers were like, wait, I don't when you make your value proposition variety, the good news about that is it's easy to be different than the competition if the competition is very similar in the case of sparkling water. The bad news is after some number of years, they're tired of your variety. If your value prop is variety, you need to keep iterating. You can't just be different for 2 years and then all of a sudden they're used to it. So that's why we started coming out with new flavors. The negative of that is that's not a very subscribable thing because you constantly want a new product. So yes, we have people that subscribe to our best sellers, lavender cucumber, basil berry, lemongrass coconut. But the vast majority of our business is not subscriptions, even though that's a good sign if you're an investor. The vast majority of our business is people buying the latest and greatest and chiming in with an opinion. So finally, we have a way that they can subscribe with just the monthly flavor, which we imagine will be our most popular product in very, very short order.
That's awesome. I totally get the struggle here with the diverse kind of new flavors and stuff like that. It's hard to build a subscription product. One thing I noticed,
Yeah.
not only do you guys have like really unique flavors, but you also guys know you guys have a really unique website, right? There's a lot of animations. I think there's even the game in the corner. So how do you guys think about merchandising and
Yeah.
designing the website and stuff like that? Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun at that. I mentioned the Squarespace site. I'll just be honest and run through every iteration of our websites. The first iteration was one page we built on Squarespace in no more than 10 minutes. And then we did a slightly more detailed version also in Squarespace once we realized, hey, there are people like coming to this site. Let's tell them more information. And we had to build a store locator. Then we had some friends mock up a website that had way more capabilities on Shopify that you could purchase from. That was just before we went on Shark Tank in January of 2021 is when that aired. We needed to be able to like have ads go to the site and have a Facebook pixel, which all those things were new to us. As I mentioned, I had no background here. And then once we had steady every month ad spend going to the website machine, we needed just frankly just a better website. Um, we did that next iteration mostly in-house. My wife and co-founder Maddie did most of the detail there. And that worked for about 12 months. And realized, man, if we're going to keep coming out with a new flavor every time, we need things to be a little more plug and play. Let's do a down to the studs remodel of the website. We worked with an amazing agency. The agency's name is ViewSource. The guy's name is Ross. He's incredible. Maddie worked with him with our designer Jesse for, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 months at least on every single piece of it. And we felt, hey, we've been very different from normal sparkling water in our flavors, in our recipes, in our lack of citric acid, in our packaging. Let's be as different with our tone of voice, with the haikus on our can, and let's be as different with our website. We would love if you could interact with a game while you're on there. That was the idea of it. Can we make the website as fun as the packaging, as fun as the flavors, as fun as the tastes, as different as what you see next to us on the show?
That totally makes sense. And is it pretty do you guys have the templates in place so when you add new flavors and stuff like that, it's pretty a plug and play, or do you guys still work with the agency, or how do you guys
Right.
do it?
A mix of both. We want it to be as plug and play as possible, but certainly we enjoy giving ViewSource a call and having them work on some things.
That totally makes sense. One thing you mentioned in your history was is that you were on Shark Tank previously, so maybe you can talk through that experience, maybe how you guys got on, the experience itself, and then any post traffic, post lift, yeah, you guys saw after that. Um,
Sure, yeah. We had very few days of ad spend before that. So the riff from Shark Tank was almost off of no base. But yeah, we sold more on that, 24 hours span of us going on Shark Tank and shortly after than we did ever in the history of our website combined, which is amazing. We gathered more than 10,000 email addresses in 7 minutes. That's probably the best gift that Shark Tank gave us. And of course, it's a fun thing to mention to retailers and to consumers. And when people are sampling, almost every time someone says, I think I saw this product on Shark Tank. So it was a lot of fun. It was a wild experience. Highly recommend it to anyone. And it's a great marketing vehicle, of course. And honestly, it's a great camp for making sure you're ready to defend your business to investors, particularly if you are in a category that's as capital intensive as beverage.
that totally makes sense. It's a really competitive channel in beverage. Do you guys, so it's obviously, especially sparkling water, it's a relatively crowded space. So obviously you guys have your unique or niche with these different types of flavors. What are some other ways you try to differentiate them from the competition?
Yeah. When I mentioned those brands earlier, I mentioned Kettle Potato Chips, Justin's Peanut Butter, and Jenny's Ice Cream. I mentioned those in particular, one, because they're in very commodity categories, and two, because they are really big brands now that have done a great job despite the commodity category. So we were not trying to reinvent the wheel. I think all of those brands followed this same playbook. And I hope years from now, someone could say the same thing about Ora Bora. One, they had differentiated flavors from the competition. They had a reason why consumers should try their product beyond quality, just different from what's on the shelf. Two, superior product quality usually meant different ingredients, differentiated ingredients. And then three, differentiated brand. And I don't mean by brand, packaging is one piece of that, but I mostly mean consumers' experience with your product. All of those things, all encompassing is brand, your tone of voice, how you write, how you talk, how you email, how often you discount, et cetera, all kind of work into someone's brand. So I mentioned those three factors: product, flavor, brand, because on product, yeah, we wanted our product to not have citric acid. We wanted a distinct bubble size. We were interested in, of course, a 12-ounce sleek can because we thought that connoted premium in a way. You didn't want when a product is left in your car overnight, if it had citric acid in it, you never would drink that in the morning. LaCroix, you've probably never consumed a LaCroix more than 45 minutes after opening it. Or a Bora, leave it in your car half drunk after overnight, and it's just flavored water, but it doesn't taste like a chemical the way that anything with citric acid does. That's the product. On flavors, yeah, self-explanatory. We use wild, whimsical, herbal, botanical-based flavors. And then finally on brand, some of that's packaging as I've covered, and some of that is it's a very boring category. In fact, sparkling water sounds like a commodity. There are private labels, one of the biggest pieces of sparkling water. Kroger has their own sparkling water. Trader Joe's has their own sparkling water. Good and Gather is Target sparkling water. So you're competing against big private label. Like it's not hard to have a differentiated brand, but still we wanted it to be distinct in the beverage set. So that's how we thought about being different.
Totally makes sense. So you guys have built an amazing brand, an amazing product, packaging. What's the big focus for the next, let's say, 6 months for you guys?
Scaling into conventional retail. So we started mostly in natural retailers, Sprouts, Whole Foods, the Fresh Market, Fresh Time, Thrive Market. Next up is Kroger, Albertsons, Walmart, Target, insert the blank. So not just retailers that serve the top third, the upper class consumers on either coast, but retailers in the middle of the country at every income class. That's our goal for the next 6 months and frankly, forever.
That makes sense. What's the process like there? Is it like showing some proof points, or yeah, maybe you can discuss the process of
Selling.
trying to get into these bigger retailers like Kroger's.
Yeah, yeah. If you're listening to this and you think, oh, it's really scalable to get into groceries, it is not scalable at all. It is a knife fight. We're in 7,500 stores as of today. And each of those 7,500 stores has been hard to get into. And that is how it works. That's why when you go into grocery stores, you see a lot of the same items and they're owned by General Mills, Mondelez, Nabisco, Coke, Pepsi, Nestle, Dr. Pepper, Keurig, General Mills, Kraft Heinz, insert the blank. If you went to your cabinet right now and you took everything off the shelf of the conglomerates I just rattled off, throw in Procter Gamble, Unilever, et cetera, you'd be left with very little left in the fridge or the pantry. So there's not a lot of innovation in grocery. It's by design. Grocery stores operate, the best grocery store in the country operates still on a single digit percentage profit margin at the end of the year. Some of that's because of really high spoils, and some of that's because it's just a very hard business. The negative of that is you're not really incentivized to take a big risk. If you're a grocery store and you take a big risk, you might go from making 2.5% profit to losing 2% and your store's closed. So as a result, you need to keep things very, very streamlined and play it very safe. What that means is you need to make a really compelling pitch to distributors, to buyers, to the category manager for each of those stores. And they all have different schedules and different ways they evaluate products. So it makes for a very full-time job to scale into
That
retailers.
totally makes sense. I think the point about these bigger stores, they don't have that much margin, right? And so there's not too much for them to play with, so they have to
They have plenty of gross margin. They have very
net
little net
margin.
margin.
That
Yes.
that totally makes sense. And then obviously getting into these bigger retail stores, what is the long-term goal, maybe 5 years out?
Yeah, most beverages, uh, with the exception of maybe Joe Tea and Arizona iced tea and Calypso, I don't know any profitable beverages that are not owned by Coke, Pepsi, Nestle, Dr. Pepper, Keurig, or a few other small strategics. So it's just nearly impossible to build a profitable beverage business unless you have your own distribution, which all the big conglomerates I just named have their own distribution. So the goal is, yeah, 5 years from now to be a compelling product slash company slash brand for a buyer that's interested in taking Ora Bora from its small roots to hopefully the premium sparkling water. This is a very big category, but it's growing fast. So years from now, when someone asks, what's your favorite sparkling water? I hope that people say, oh, my favorite juice infused sparkling water is Spindrift. My favorite European import is Pellegrino. My favorite craft sparkling water is Ora Bora. And I hope that's the kind of relationship our country has to sparkling water, maybe a
That's
decade from now.
awesome. Good luck on that journey there. And then last couple of questions. Are there any kind of technology changes, maybe AI or stuff like that, or any kind of trends in e-commerce you're really excited?
Sure. I'll jump in the AI one. I think in a world where you could have AI's help, one, with replenishing inventory, this isn't just related to e-commerce, but anyone that's carrying inventory to retail or e-commerce, it's really hard now to forecast demand based off seasonality. We have really long spreadsheets and it takes three humans a long time. So a world where all that data could just pump into a machine and AI could spit out, hey, go make this number of cases of cactus rose. That would be amazing. Same thing with on the customer experience side. Of course, there's a human touch involved in selling on the internet, but a lot of it is day in, day out, mundane, repeatable tasks. And that feels like the kind of thing that AI would be really good at. I think there's plenty of other technology on the e-commerce side, but frankly, I try not to get distracted by it because we're trying to build a big beverage business and a lot of that ends up being a distraction. You have to ignore a lot of the exciting technology and just focus on moving pallets in stores.
That totally makes sense. It's a lot of having your own brand is, I don't want to say the dirty work, but maybe mundane work that you have to, someone's got to do it.
No, no, say dirty work. As dirty gets. Yes,
Yeah,
very
that
dirty work.
totally makes sense. And then a final question, is there some brand other than your own that you've shopped recently that you really enjoyed the experience or the product?
Ooh, that's a good question. For e-commerce, I'll try to give a different answer than the normal ones. Um, there's a personal care brand based out of Vermont called Ursa Major, and I think they have a really slick e-commerce experience and just a great portfolio of products. So Ursa Major, check it
Okay,
out.
awesome.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Son Mall Podcast. Please make sure to subscribe.